All right, welcome back, everyone. We're starting a little early today. Coach Nick got a busy day, but welcome back for our weekly Bitcoin wrap-up, man. How you been, man?
I'm doing great, man. Excited. I have a church men's breakfast today in a little while, so we had to move it up a little bit. So I thank you for doing that, and I'm excited to hear any questions today. Talk about what happened in Bitcoin, and just get through another week, man. It seems like the world's going crazy every single week.
Yeah, man, a lot of stuff going on, right? This was a very interesting week, right? So Bitcoin had a rough day, silver took a hit, even golf stocks didn't look great, right? Hold on, let me your channel's coming through here. Hold on. So yeah, well on that, go jump over to Coach Nick's channel, subscribe there, like, put a comment. But yeah, so the question is this noise or is it something actually is changing? So let's break it down, right? So Bitcoin, silver, and golf, time to panic, right?
No, so we're not seeing the death of Bitcoin. We're seeing like a rotation of Bitcoin. While Bitcoin's dropping, it sure went down to 83 or 81 or 86. And gold hit all-time highs, right? 5,500. Silver was over 100, it hit like 117. But all of those took a dive on Friday alone. If you don't know, between all the precious metals, they've lost $10 trillion in one day. Well, if that 10 trillion rolls over into Bitcoin, which is still a new asset, only 15 years old, then it would be worth about 450,000 a coin. So there's a lot of money out there. And you don't say like gold's going anywhere, right? Because it had a terrible day. It lost 5 Bitcoin market caps in one day. And no one talks about, oh, gold's over, because it's not over. We all know that. Silver's not over. Houses ain't over. And I don't believe Bitcoin's over at all. We're in the starter phase, only 15 years in, and it's still over 80K. It might go down to 60K. I don't know. Not exactly sure where the bottom is. I got lucky because I was able to sell some at about 107. I posted all my stuff. I always want to tell people, what to check out and what to think, but I wouldn't panic. Don't panic. HoDL, that's the name of the channel, right? Daily HoDL, lead pray HoDL. It's consolidating. It's going to coil. It's going to spring up, I believe, at one point. But when it comes to macro news, it's craziness every single day right now. It's either a Trump tweet, it's a bomb in Iran, it's a Fed freaking guys Don Lemon got arrested yesterday. Like the whole damn world's going crazy. So don't panic. Markets hate uncertainty. Finance hates uncertainty, and all the algorithms are meant to make us nervous and panic and scared and fearful and anxiety. Man, I remember when I first did Bitcoin. Remember, I sold all my real estate and I put it into Bitcoin. The first week, I think I lost $100,000, man. And I was like throwing up. I was so new to Bitcoin. I was scared. I was like, this is volatile. And you know what? I made a lot of money since then. I started to understand what volatility really means and how to make money on the downside and different things. So don't be afraid. Don't panic. Don't put all your net worth, you know what I mean? Maybe you don't have the diamond balls that I had to do so, you know what I mean? But even now, I made a lot of money. I put it in what's called STRC for 11% dividends, and I talk about that on my channel. So there's one thing to get rich, you take more risks. There's another thing to preserve your wealth, and that's what's going on right now. But do I think long-term Bitcoin's the answer to sound money? I absolutely do.
Well, quickly before we move on to the next question, but you said HODL, and I know you did a recording with Zuber recently, right? So if everyone hasn't seen that, go check that out. But what does HODL stand for, and where did it come from? Because Zuber kind of forgot, right?
Yeah, so HoDL was actually an email. The guy spelled hold wrong. He was drunk. It was a drunk email, and he was supposed to say hold, and then it's been HoDL. So everyone says HoDL since then. Laugh about it. It was a funny thing in the beginning. And now people just use it in a reference of hold on for dear life. Always HoDL your Bitcoin during the volatility. Hold on for dear life as it continues to go down and up. When it goes up, people FOMO in. That happens for sure. Nobody wants to be left out. And as it go down, everybody likes to point the finger, but that's okay. It's a new thing. You know what I mean? And new things take time. And I'll talk more about it as well. But that's where HoDL comes from. And that's why I kind of put that as part of my channel. Lead, pray, HoDL.
Nice. So we are seeing banks and even burger joints think ahead of when it comes to Bitcoin, right? So what does that tell us about where adoption really is?
Well, the banks are fighting like cats and dogs against cryptocurrency and Bitcoin for a long time now. First, they just laughed about it, and then they realized that they're late to the party. And so they're trying to make up for lost time with, negative narratives and so on. But now they're starting to adopt it a little bit. Bank of America, Vanguard, they're kind of opening the gates. They're telling you to put 1 to 4% of your net worth, and they represent trillions of dollars. So they're actually teaching people a little bit more about Bitcoin. They're also talking about like self custody and staking, and they're trying to, like, instead of fight it, create these vaults of Bitcoin themselves, because they don't want to lose all the money they have tied up to fees, ATM fees, banking fees, overdraft fees, wire transfer fees. Banks make a lot of money on screwing you, is what happens, right? And so they're fighting like cats and dogs for that. As far as, so that's banks. When you talk about burgers, I don't know if you know what Steak and Shake is, but they've adopted a Bitcoin standard. And in the past, they accepted Bitcoin at all their restaurants. You can see it on their website. And since then, their sales have jumped 18% since accepting Bitcoin. So that's a pretty big deal. So they just added another $5 million to their reserve. And they're thinking long term, not short term. They're pretty excited about that. And I'm excited for it. So when banks are adopting things, burger joints are adopting things, it's only a matter of time till more adoption continues to happen. And that's a good thing, because when it comes to Bitcoin, it can be used anywhere. It could be Lebanon, it could be Nigeria, it could be Argentina, it could be the US, and that's pretty amazing. It's not all heavy and crazy. You're not going to shave off some gold to buy a burger, are you? No. So you got to move with the times.
And while businesses are adapting, the macro backdrop still matters, right? So how did the most recent Federal Reserve meeting impact markets this week?
Well, that was kind of a poop show if you watched it this week. Like, nobody was really talking about it because we already knew they weren't going to cut rates, but every question was about basically them trying to, Jerome Powell undercut him, make him look bad. Now you're getting sued because you mismanaged your own money on your building and everything else. So he didn't pretty much answer anything. And every news article or mainstream media tried to ask questions about it to get a response. But if you've ever seen Jerome Powell talk, he doesn't get into too much politics very often. He'll just completely ignore it, which I like about that. I don't want him worrying about things like that. But he held the rates. And that is hawkish to a lot of people because they were hoping that he would continue to cut in some ways. And when you do that, I mean, people get a little nervous. Since then, like I said, gold tumbled on Friday, silver tumbled on Friday, and Bitcoin's continuing to tumble as well with it, because assets can go up. Sure, we're used to this bull run that's been incredible since the great financial crisis, but things happen. Even in 2022, we had the SPY, which is an index fund with 500 different S&P 500 companies. It dropped 22% that year in 2022. So, I mean, things happen. It's not unusual. There's a time when Tesla dropped 69%, I think, in that same year. Think about that, 69%. Now it's a trillion dollar company, and the richest man in the world owns it. So things happen when it comes to these stocks or Bitcoin. It's because they're liquid. In a house, you got to get a refinance. It takes some time. Maybe it takes a month. Whereas this, you can just go in and out of it and get rid of it and spend it elsewhere and move it around, pay bills, buy a castle, just different things. Maybe even buy a burger for my boy Marc here. If you're in Vegas for Zuber's thing, buy Marc a burger, a little Denny's trip. What's your go-to order at Denny's, by the way?
Some breakfast thing usually, but it's usually whatever, everyone else is paying for.
Okay, yeah. Well, somebody buy
No,
this guy. I thought you were going to say some spam or some Hawaiian thing.
no, not that. We can get enough of that in Hawaii.
Yeah, I figured as much.
But you touched on silver, I believe, and if anyone is in the school community or on LinkedIn, go check out Zuber's daily writing. I think that I just saw it come across my feed. His writing today is about silver dropping 30%. So go check that out. But when liquidity tightens or uncertainty rises, households feel it fast, right? So why is chasing money instead of building stability taking down so many households right now?
My dad used to tell me, never change your life for money unless it's life-changing money. But too many people are continuing to money chase. It makes me laugh. You hear it a lot in real estate. I own 3,000 doors. You know what I mean? And they're like cash flowing $50. Like that one guy on the video with Zuber this past week, the bald guy.
The bald guy, yes.
Yeah, I was watching you, interview Zuber. It was a good interview as always when you're doing it. And the bald guy was really negative because he's basically doing, something new every year, and he's learning. And there's a learning curve to anything. And if you've done anything in your life, you're going to have a learning curve. That's okay. It's not unusual, but sometimes you need to really focus in and know your stuff before you're expanding into the next shiny new object.
Yeah, the one big takeaway from that video and a lot of the comments was The bald guy doesn't have 10 years of experience like he's saying. He has 1 year of experience 10 times over, right? So he's basically starting over from square one every time, right? So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great quote. Whoever made that up, if it was you, Mark, or somebody else, I can't remember if it was a comment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
someone put it in a comment section.
yeah. See, I support my friends here. I listen to their videos and do their things, and
So
I,
so go check out Nick's channel right now. Go jump over there, subscribe, follow, and even his Instagram page is in the chat. But yeah.
yeah, same for Mark, man. You guys come and you listen every day, even if you know already follow him and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, say some great stuff, get his channel moving around, and let more people follow it because I think he's doing a great service. He's a great guy, and I look forward to you tell me your stories about Vegas and enjoying all your friends.
I have not paid Nick anything. He's not getting paid in Bitcoin or anything to say that, but thanks, man.
Yeah. But anyways, I want to keep going on that. So people chase money. I host a men's Bible study on Wednesday nights, and men especially, they tend to like forget about their families a lot, and they're working either a side job plus their job, or they think that just because they take their wives or families on vacations and buy them a nice car or clothes, but then they treat them like crap or ignore them all week or whatever else, their lives tend to struggle because they're in the money chase. But your household is most important, and treating your partner, treating your kids, and treating your friends and family with love, care, and even time, because time's the most valuable thing. It cannot be recycled, and that's the wonderful thing about time. That's why when you like look around your house and your like wife maybe is throwing all these bags of stuff away, you're like, damn, that was my time right there. You just threw that away, and we have a tendency to waste our money on stupid things. So
Yep. So with all of that in mind, volatility, adoption, macro and household pressure. So let's look ahead a little bit, right? So heading into next week, what should people be watching in Bitcoin and in the broader financial markets?
yeah, that's one thing I do on my channel, right? I'm giving you the daily HoDL, and we're talking about finance, really. And we talk about things that impact Bitcoin and finance. I love Tesla. I like Elon Musk. I like what's going on just every day for fun because I'm a history teacher and I enjoy the craziness. My pocketbook doesn't always enjoy it. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you have unexpected things because you don't have a crystal ball when you're investing, or else everyone would just be filthy rich, right? But next week, you're expecting maybe some more chaos. There's continual talks about this government shutdown, right, or a partial shutdown, and uncertainty. I really believe that they're trying to. If you understand politics, doesn't matter left or right, they're trying to wait for the midterms so they could get a little bit more balance of power going on. Because right now you have presidential control, Senate and House control in the Republican Party. That's okay. They want to just steal one of those, House, Senate, whatever. They're not going to steal the presidency yet because that's not up. But so if they could delay things through shutdowns, I think that's kind of their plan. So you can't pass a law, right? There's things that are still waiting. They're still talking about the Clarity Act. It's a crypto bill. They passed something in the agricultural law or bill that they just did in the Senate. And Clarity group meets in 2 days to talk Bitcoin again with the White House, which is pretty awesome. But the government shutdown, it's all planned, and they're fighting for time more than anything else, I believe, not ice or something they want to say. It's just a matter of let's just extend this as far as we can, get you the midterms, and hopefully they can win a seat. Now, I don't care. I personally like a balanced House and Senate, truthfully, because then they have to work together. When they don't work together, it just as soon as they take power, they throw everything out and do their own thing. And I hate that more than anything because we're constantly just unbalanced here. Whereas China, they got 100-year history of long-term thinking. America doesn't have that because we're not working together, and a house divided will not stand. And I just hope that I just hope we continue to work together as a country and more centrist. Too far right, too far left, a bunch of morons. So that's one thing. The next thing is the labor market. They have more labor data coming out next week, and there's a lot of fear about the labor market. People are worried about losing their jobs to AI, especially. What are we going to do? I'm a high school teacher, basically because I just enjoy working with kids, talking money, talking life, and growing them through what happened through the past in history or economics. But they're worried about their jobs. And students don't know, do I go to college? Do I not go to college? If I go to college, what am I going for? If I don't go to college, am I doing a trade because those are big right now? Or am I not doing a trade because it's hard work? You know what I mean? Getting down there. So there's a lot of confusion going on, and I don't blame them because I don't have the answers. I just try to deliver the news on stuff like that. But yeah, next week should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great weekly wrap up. Like you said, go to my channel, subscribe, like, jump over to Nick's channel. But we do have some questions, so let's jump into some of the questions in the chat. So I do see Harrison, Trade Better 99, says, why would people be selling their Bitcoin with the dollar weakening? Would this be counterintuitive?
Well, I mean, I think Bitcoin is the hardest asset on the planet because of the 21 million coins that will ever be created. And we know about 5 or 6 million have already been lost forever, whether it's Satoshi's coins or just people's wallets that they lost, or, it was back on a hard drive from back in the day and they don't know. So I think it's the hardest money on the planet. So long term, I think it's crazy to sell their Bitcoin just for that reason. But there's fear, there's panic. People understand that it's volatile. We're talking about an early asset right now. So early assets, they are more volatile. As we continue to get more market cap like gold and silver, it will be more stable. You won't have as much movement, but it's still possible, as you saw with silver. I think I was on last week and I was like, I wouldn't buy silver yet right now, because anything that goes up, whether it's even Bitcoin, if it goes up that fast, it could have a really bad day just as quickly. And I doesn't mean silver isn't great. It works for semiconductor chips, and I mean, I heard solar power, the solar, those are up like 29% because of the silver it takes inside them. So, anyways, I just think that long-term play, you stick with your Bitcoin. It's okay to diversify. I have some Tesla, I have some SPY, I have a bunch of money in Stretch STRC because it gives me a dividend of 11% a year and probably going to go up. So it's nothing wrong with that. No one's saying to just throw all your money in one thing. That could be scary and kind of irresponsible, depending on how much money you have. Yep.
All Nighter Hider has a question. It says, has anything about the Bitcoin protocol changed since inception in 2008?
Right. So he's basically saying Bitcoin's consistent. You could trust it. You know what to expect. And that's great. No counterparty risk, right? You don't need permission to hold it. It's completely different from banks, man. Banks are fighting this like cats and dogs. And guess how much one Bitcoin is worth? It's worth one Bitcoin. People are still, talking about fiat and how money's worth, but money is printed. That same house that you had a long time ago in 2008 and 2009 when it crashed and it was worth 130 grand instead of the 500 it's worth now, the house didn't really change. It's just the way money did, the markets did. And you don't zoom into one moment in time and be like, houses suck because of 2008. Well, some people did, and guess what? They missed out on great gains. And other people like Michael Zuber, who you were talking about, like, were you a great product of the great financial crash? And he was like, yeah, I had some great timing, but you know what? It took some diamond balls to get in there when everybody else was so afraid. Everyone's bleeding. No way I'm touching real estate. No way I'm touching Bitcoin. So the same thing you pray for, housing to go down, Bitcoin to go down, is the same thing that you're afraid to buy once it does.
I'm going to kind of lump in these next two ones by Hyder. He does say Bitcoin is 24/7 liquidity, but he also says people are wired to think in terms of dollars because that's the case. Many people want to sell for what they know and are comfortable with, even if they lose.
There you go. That's what I just said. I got to follow this a little better. I got to see where you're at.
Let's see. Trade Better 99 says, what do you think of Tesla canceling the Model S and X line for robots?
I think it's incredible. You know what I mean? They're not just, what they're saying is we're not just a car company anymore. We're fully AI, we're fully tech, full FSD, fully self-driving cars. That's incredible. If you ever been in a Tesla, I don't know if you have. Mark, have you been in one with FSD?
Oh, no.
Oh, man, and it just drives you somewhere. It's incredible. You have that for a little while, and then you're like, man, this is what I need. My friends have I got some really wealthy friends, but they have the FSD. And if you kind of bought it earlier, you got a discount, basically. And it's incredible. It changes lanes for you, and it drives all the way for you. You can take a nap. You can do whatever you want. And I think that's the future of everything. I'm even going to challenge Dion a little bit because I think those Big Mac trucks are going to have FSD one day too. And I worry about those truck drivers. He doesn't agree, but that's okay.
Well, I do see a lot of people taking advantage of that now, and they do a lot of their YouTube content driving or self-driving, and they're filming themselves, and that's when they're doing their commutes, and that's where they're making a lot of their content now. Um,
Autopilot for a long time, but nobody says anything. You know what I mean? Like there's been autopilot for a long time on these planes, and no one really thought, well, that's crazy. They're going to just continue to do that. You know why? Because people are STUPID. They're trying to get rid of people because they might not wake up. They might have a bad attitude. They might be sexually harassing some lady at work or him. You know what I mean? So they're trying to get away from that. My wife works in HR, man, and she's like, oh man, people are just crazy.
Man, I don't know though. Do you think we're that close to like autopilot, like people, no pilots? I mean, you would have to have a pilot on the plane. I think, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, well, the new Teslas that they're making, to go back to Tesla, because I think it's an incredible company, they're making it with like no steering wheels anymore and no pedals for some of these new robo taxis and things. So there's not gonna be no option to just grab the wheel if it goes bad. So he's taking his time making sure that it works perfectly. And I think once, I mentioned this 2 weeks ago. My wife's brother died, 2 weeks ago, car accident. I think he fell asleep at the wheel and a crash caught fire. She's been having a hard time. Prayers are welcome for that. But the more FSD, I think the less that ever happens. And I think it's a good thing. And it's much safer. And probably insurance companies don't like it because they're going to have to lower premiums. But I just believe in the future. I don't think we're taking everyone's job tomorrow or anything like that. But there is a transition coming.
Yeah, sorry to hear that, man. If you're here, send Nick and his family prayers. I also do see Hyder, though, saying we should only have about 12 to 15 people working in government. That would be the right size, in my opinion.
Well, they got to be the right 12 to 15. That's the kind of scary thing. If you go back kind of in history and you go back to like Socrates and, getting death and, dying, and they have these juries and they're like, well, anyways, I don't want to go into a whole history lesson, but sometimes they'll still kill you even though you didn't do anything wrong. So you got to be a little afraid of emotion that gets involved when it comes to juries or even government. There's a lot of hate for the other side, no matter what side you're on right now. And the reality is, I believe a lot of us are in the middle ground a lot of times, and they're trying to divide us up. But when I talk to a lot of people, they kind of all agree with what I think, no matter if they're on the left or the right side. Now, there's a few, crazies out there for sure.
There is a post that was on X. I think it's maybe where a lot of people are at right now on Bitcoin. So maybe you can touch on some of these or what's your thoughts on this. So this individual says, if you're buying Bitcoin now, I'm genuinely curious about the thesis. Is it the future of money? That's what I heard 5 years ago, and I still can't buy much with it. Is it a hedge against inflation? The data suggests otherwise. Is it a counter to dollar devaluation that hasn't held up? Is it a hedge against global turmoil? We've seen that fail as well. By simple deduction, there's no clear reason to buy Bitcoin other than to speculate on price. If you have a different thesis, I'd be happy to hear it.
Yeah, Bitcoin isn't failing its thesis. People are just judging it by the wrong one, in my opinion. See, Bitcoin's not trying to be Venmo. People confuse that all the time. It's trying to be sound money. You know what I mean? It's a long-term hedge, not a short-term CPI trade that we get once a month. Like I said, there's a fixed supply, not an infinite fiat print from the government. They're just throwing money at it. It could be at a Leering Center. It could be at whatever they're doing in another country, but that's not safe. You know what I mean? They're just printing your savings is melting every day. There's no counterparty risk. I mentioned that earlier. It's neutral and global. You can go any country you want. And, speculation is how every monetary asset has learned, even gold in the beginning. It's like, is this really what we should be doing? And then they transfer to dollars, which aren't worth anything. They're just paper, but we agreed upon that they're worth a value to gold. And now Bitcoin's in its early infancy stage, and it's going to outperform things, I think, over time. But right now there's less trust because it's new and people are still learning. And when people don't understand something, it's going to take them time, but you can start seeing more adoption. The president of the United States, the most powerful country in the world, is trying to go Bitcoin reserve. They already got hundreds of thousands of coins they're not getting rid of because they have value. And they're trying to do more through stable coins, Bitcoins, cryptography, right? Banks are using tokenization. If you don't know, they're trying to get stocks on Solana or Sui and do 24-hour trading because it's faster, it's cheaper, and banks don't like that either. So people really need to change their thesis. You could buy a burger at Steak and Shake right now. You couldn't do that before with Bitcoin, right? It was only on like video games back in the day. So maybe you bought 2 pizzas a long time ago, but that's it. But yeah, so I think the thesis for some people is changing, because look what happened Friday. Is gold now not as valuable in terms of like what you believe it to be, or silver, because of one day of max? I mean, 33% of your net worth, if you had it in silver yesterday, you would have lost. That's a damn, if you had $1 million, you're down $330,000 in one day. You know what I mean? Some people haven't had that happen before. I've had hundreds of thousands down in a day, and I've made Lambo days before that I talked to you about. Volatility happens. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. And when Bitcoin has went down to 16,000 a coin, it also went up to 126,000 a coin. So just because it's down doesn't mean it's dead. And I'm not telling you to put all your money in. If you have a lot of money, I would be safer and preserve it, but be smart about it. I have Bitcoin for the long-term play. I have some MicroStrategy for the leverage play, and I have some stretch for the dividend cash flow. And I also, as you know, do covered calls to make money weekly on the volatility. So just find your lane and stay in it.
There also was a reel that I put out with you and I don't know if it was a couple weeks ago, but you were talking about BlackRock. And there was a comment on that reel, and it says, wow, BlackRock sold 102 million this week. This did not age well, talking about the reel that I put out, right? So what was that person talking about?
Yeah, so they don't know what they're talking about. So let's be quite frank. They don't have a clue. That was back in August, I think that reel was. I'm going to pull it up because I want to just say, but I don't want to name names because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Where's it at? You sent me that.
While you're looking for that, I see Big Val tuning in. I see Harrison. We'll get to your question right after this. You got it, or you found?
Yeah. So in that video, I'm talking about IBIT, right, and how and this is my retort back. I'm just going to read it. IBIT just trades like a stock and follows spot Bitcoin because market makers keep it in line. The day-to-day price moves are mostly retail plus institutions trading the ETF shares, not BlackRock actually touching the Bitcoin itself. BlackRock only actually buys or sells Bitcoin if there are creations of or redemptions, which is called real inflows or outflows. If the price is down, but there aren't big outflows, no Bitcoin is being sold. Just like, by the way, you could have price go down and there's actually inflows in IBIT. So that's exactly what that video was saying. And I said it aged perfectly. Also, the video says it was the fastest growing ETF in history. That was spot on as well. And I said, your comment is the equivalent of a man telling a woman how to do makeup. You might not have seen it. You might have seen it done, but you have no clue what you're talking about. Don't get me wrong. It's okay to say you don't understand. Watch my channel. Look, man, stay in your lane. You guys don't know what you're talking about sometimes. And instead of leaving comments you don't understand, especially when you're right, and I'm not always right. Trust me, I'm wrong plenty of times. But you should learn. You should ask questions. You should grow. Sometimes, especially with an older generation, like I was mentioning in that exact video, Larry Fink thought Bitcoin was trash. And then a few years later, he's like, man, we need this ETF. This is an incredible sound money. And they've made billions of dollars because instead of judging something you don't understand, you learn about something you do. That's what, like the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was thinking about this morning. You've read that book, right, Mark? Rich Dad Poor Dad. Do you think that book would have been as famous if he was broke at the time when he put that out, and it was just some guy named Marc, the financial firefighter, and he was like, here's this book? Probably not, because you don't really take advice from poor people, right? But what made it so amazing is this guy was rich and he made money through debt, and he learned about money through a rich person, the rich dad. And his poor dad wasn't poor, he just wasn't rich because he didn't understand how money works. And I think the best part of that book, and I actually teach that in our classes in financial literacy, is that you need to understand how money works. And in this case, we're talking about sound money. It's called Bitcoin. Bitcoin, like Hyder just said, it never leaves the blockchain. You really need to understand that one Bitcoin always equals one Bitcoin, and just continue to learn, because you know what? I've been skeptical myself. I've been a hater myself sometimes. And the more I got orange pilled, the more I studied something, the more I learned about it. The same with real estate. No termites, no toilets, no, you know what I mean? No calls in the morning. And then you're like, wow, I'm actually making money on this thing, depreciation, tax, cash flow, and so on. So it's just all about learning and growing. And And like I said, I don't want to name names, not a bad person or nothing, but I just hope that more people, especially generations that don't understand Bitcoin and the adjustment. Look, back in the day, they said internet was going to fail. They're like, this doesn't have a chance. Look at it now. They had horses, and then there was cars, and they're like, no, we're going to keep our horses. Yeah, that didn't last very long, right? There was typewriters, and then there was computers. Yeah, I'm not using a typewriter anymore, buddy. You know what I mean? So times change with them, or get left behind. Yep.
I forgot what I was watching. They kind of were touching exactly on that about if there wasn't innovation or free market, or I forgot what but they're basically saying if not, people would have just been trying to find the faster horse,
Yep.
right? Instead of someone trying to come in and create the automobile, right? So, but let's see, Trade Better 99. Oh,
Real quick. That's why America is the most incredible country in the world, because they have capitalism and they have innovation and they want you to grow. They want you to be entrepreneurs. They want you to, the tax laws are for businesses to create businesses, to hire people. So people do have jobs. Whereas other countries, even like China, they have really intelligent people there as well. But they've stymied some of their growth because they teach them about books. They can memorize a book front end to back end, read the whole book 3 times, but they're not creative thinking. The one thing about America, we might be getting a little dumber in some areas, don't get me wrong, but we're creative thinkers. We're survivors, you know what I mean? And I hope one day we actually, you know, what I think, I don't want to say that, but I think there's going to be some revolting towards taxes, because I was California again, they want to tax per mile now that you drive. You're going to pay more taxes the more you drive. Get the hell out of here, bro. We already tax the roads, the fast track lane, the registration, the gas. They just want to tax you to death, man. Drives me crazy.
Trade Better 99 says, do you support Tesla cars using their GPUs for Bitcoin mining when not driving?
Oh man, so that's one of the cool things about even the miners. They're learning how to use that power sources for different things. And Tesla, yeah, I think Tesla cars, to me, they're awesome. They're incredible. They're the future. If you've ever been in them, they're wonderful. But they're going way beyond that with the robots like Trade Better's talking about. With, I mean, they have all kinds of things they're doing. If you look at Elon Musk's like history of what he's accomplished, the man is what I just talked about for America. He's creative and he doesn't take no for an answer. He just says, figure it out. And Tesla's going to figure it out. So if there's an efficient way for them to, for the GPUs for Bitcoin mining, they'll do that because that's what they do. While everyone was still using gas stations, the man has been putting electrical charging stations all around the country, and they make big cash flow from that money, man. And people, they're still living in the past, right? They still want that old school video. Now, I like gas vehicles. Don't get me wrong. I got a big truck and it gets 13 miles to the gallon on my 35-inch tires, but I still love both.
I'm gonna skip over one of Harrison's questions real quick because I do see someone new tuning in. Aquacell AG6547. Thanks for stopping by. Jump over to Nick's channel also. He does daily content on Bitcoin. But please subscribe and like. But so yesterday, this happens to because we were I was live streaming with Justin Camera and Brian Waters yesterday, and Brian Waters is in California, and I don't know if you commented on that, like, or you put it somewhere about Texas, you know, maybe not having the lifestyle you prefer or whatnot. But this individual is saying I ran to Texas from California, you know, for probably a lot of the reason that you're talking about, taxes and things like that.
Well, so that's tricky. If I did taxes for 7 years, so Texas has such high property taxes that it's pretty much a wash from California. But he's probably talking about more than just taxes. He's probably talking about certain freedoms, and you should have certain freedoms that I just don't think they're allowing in this state. They're trying to tax you for everything. Man, I can't go to the grocery store with the plastic and get a plastic bag anymore. You know what I mean? They told us no paper bags, only plastic. Now there's no plastic, only paper. And those bags rip. So, I mean, I get why he would move to Texas. Now, Texas, I mean, I probably like Dallas as my favorite, maybe. Austin has some cool parts to it, great barbecue and all of that. But Texas is pretty flat. If you've been there, they have a couple cool national parks. But I like a lot of I don't know. I just like the whole entire country, I guess. So every state has their benefits, and some of them they suck because of some of their protocols.
All right, let me get back to Harrison's question that I skipped over. Do you think the rising cost in energy will kill the electric car?
Well, I don't know. I don't know, because I don't know all the information about it, and I don't want to make a comment. I do think that we continue to adapt and we figure things out. It's kind of like Bitcoin mining, I'd imagine, where a lot of miners don't, they kind of break even, or their break even point is real high, whereas people that have big money, their break even is at, let's say, 40,000 a Bitcoin instead of the 80,000 it's worth, so they can make money. So do I think Elon Musk could figure it out? Yeah, 100%. The guy's making robots, bro. You know what I mean? Fully self-driving cars.
Hyder says straws went from plastic to paper, now back to plastic. So stupid. On that energy point, I mean, I think a lot of it is, I don't know, it's the same thing as you. I don't know too much into the weeds on it, but I definitely think that we do have a great energy source in nuclear, and it's just we have to get over some humps to make people feel comfortable using it, and that I think would probably solve or help with a lot of the energy problems. But we'll see if we ever get to that point.
I think those
Uh,
plants take a few years to create, though. I think they like take like 5 years to create or something. So that kind of like that's what I talked about earlier. Is like when one political party is in full control, they wipe out all these things the other party did while in full control. And that's why I don't like that. I like when there's a little bit of a balance, because they don't get boneheaded and just like, let's wipe everything out that we did for 4 or 8 years and change it. So they're, like the pipeline stuff. Like, I don't want to get into too much of the pipeline, but we need oil. That's part of things as we transition to different forms of energy. But if we work together better, it would go a lot better for the entire country.
I do see a lot of new people tuning into the chat right now, so please hit that subscribe and like button and go. Nick is also streaming live on his YouTube channel, so you can also jump over there and subscribe. They're also riling up Hyder because they're saying crypto, but let's see. Rocky4 says, "Can 2026 be a good year for crypto?"
Yeah, well, you guys know how I am if you know me very well. I like Bitcoin. I'm not into crypto. If I were to pick anything else, it would be Solana or Sui. I think those are really, like, Bitcoin's slow and safe, and it's capped. That's why one of the things why it's incredible. Solana is fast, and there's a lot of things that are going to be on Solana, like 24-hour stock trading and different things. The faster internet, I think, is going to be on Solana. So I think it could be good. Let me tell you when it's going to get really good for Bitcoin, especially when they finish their laws and regulation for Bitcoin itself. Right now, there's no regulation in terms of wash trading. So they're moving coins, selling them at high prices and buying them back cheaper on your fear. So they're manipulating the markets. Now, market manipulation happens in everything. We saw what happened to gold and silver because they do have regulations. But at the same time, until we get this main thing like wash trading in crypto regulation, there's going to be manipulation. So once that finally gets through, and also supply goes down, because it's also about supply and demand. Right now, big whales are into the 4-year cycle. They're selling high and they're going to buy back in on the next cycle, and they're making money. They're profit taking. Some of them are profit taking billions. I know a guy over here in Orange County, and he has 20,000 Bitcoins, man. The guy's young. He's young. He's like 30 years old, has a big old house. It's just like, so I do think eventually it's going to get back to incredible in the meaning. And that's why I sold some of my trading stack and put it into Stretch, because I saw that one, Winter Minute, Binance, they still have control of Bitcoin. And anybody that's perp trading, they're doing leverage of 50x, 75x, 100x. They're going to sell or buy the coins and scoop you up for longs and shorts. And it's a casino out there right now, and they're going to manipulate it. I hate to say that about something I love so much in terms of Bitcoin, but yeah, it's being manipulated and it's being suppressed. And you know what? You would say gold and silver have been suppressed for years. And then they just kind of had a breakout as China and other countries started buying in. They're getting sick of America. That's okay. We'll ruffle some feathers. We'll take your oil and we'll get after it. You know what I mean? That's how we do.
Let's see. It says puts or calls from the the TA Games 9439.
Yeah, man. Welcome. I don't know if you're already a follower on my channel. I'm trying, I'm a high school teacher too, because like I said, I love it. I actually went to school there. So giving back to my community, that's something I do. But as far as puts or calls, I do covered call options. I do long options too, but I like covered calls because they kind of impact the volatility. Again, over the weekend, we're going down right now. I'm going to make money come Monday. It's a great thing. Other people aren't. So it's hard if you like just put your money in Bitcoin or something and you're just watching it probably and you're new to it and you're like, man, there's a lot of volatility. There is. But if you can find a way to cash flow, and that's what I did. As someone who loves real estate, I love real estate investors like Marc and others. I want some cash flow. That was the one thing I was missing when I went into Bitcoin. Even though I made major money on the pumps, I was like, I still want my little bit of cash flow without having to sell. And I figured it out, and that's called covered call options. And I make money off of that. I make weekly, daily sometimes, and monthly, and it adds up way more than I did in my real estate portfolio. I had about 2 million in rental properties, but out here in California, that's 2 properties, and you know what I mean, 4 rentals, 4 doors. Yeah.
All right, we're going to be wrapping things up soon. So anyone here, if you still have any questions, throw it in the chat real quick. I do want to say Hyder does say, where did it go? A borrowed currency comes with terms like taxes. If you don't like the terms, don't use the currency. Bitcoin is decentralized with no one to control it or charge tax on it. And I'm gonna get you to join school one day, Zuber's one rental at a time, because they are starting another accountability group. I believe Levi Webb. I think he does more stable coins and things, but a little more broad spectrum of things. But they're looking for starting a group that is not, I guess, real estate focused. Kind of a different asset classes that people are investing in. So that might be up your lane, man. If you want
Well,
to.
I plan on doing my own school community as my channel grows, and I wouldn't want him to think I was stealing anybody or anything. Like, I have a lot of respect for Zuber, so I would never want any miscommunication in that way, or, oh, now he's doing this. No, I saw something that works. I think Zuber is an incredibly smart man, and I'm gonna later down the line do the same thing. And I would never want him to think I'm taking any of his people or being shady, because that's not my character at all. So maybe, I don't know, but that would be my concern, Marc.
No, there's other people in there that have their own school platforms. So yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, I'm sure if you brought it up to him too, he would. But there is people like REI Jared who's speaking in Vegas, who does rent by the room. He has his own kind of geared direct specifically for rent by room. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, I would talk to him, man. I don't see any other questions or comments in the chat. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. I will be going live in about 2 hours with Curtis, PE turned RE, and we're actually gonna sit down with Alex Dutter's son, Adam. He is going to be one of the teenagers attending the Vegas event free to take advantage, and we're just gonna pick his brain and see what he's gonna try and get out of it, or where he's at in his financial journey as a teenager, and maybe kind of what his vision is. But that should be fun, and we'll probably interview him also after the event to kind of see what his takeaway was from it. But yeah, we're going to sit down with him in a few hours. But Coach Nick, man, have fun at your breakfast, I believe, or your meetup. But thanks for doing this, man, and we will see everyone next week. So thanks for tuning in, everyone, and go subscribe, jump over to Nick's channel, and like, subscribe, and comment real quick. All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.